Well, hello everybody. It's Brother Todd with your Victory Minute. I hope you guys and gals are having a great day out there. Woke up this morning, had a song in my head. Hadn't heard the song and I don't know when. Hadn't talked to anybody even around really the topic that it kind of covers. This old song called The Midnight Cry. And so I was just going around humming it. It's about the second coming of the Lord, and when Jesus steps out on a cloud to call his children, the dead in Christ shall rise. And if you know the song, but I'm not going to sing it for you. Don't worry. I would like for people to still continue to watch these Victory Minutes. So Brother Todd won't go to singing on it. But I was just, that song's just in my head. And so I was studying on it there a little bit. I learned a long time ago, if God wakes me up with certain thoughts, there's things he wants to show me, and it just lets your mind kind of just hold there a little bit. You know, go about your business, but study on it. And anyway, I got to studying the longer I went on it, and a word jumped back out at me out of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17, where the Lord said that, and we'll be caught up, not called up. Those that are alive and remain shall be caught up to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And I got studying on that word caught, and reminded myself that there's times in life that God operates, as we would say, unilaterally. In other words, one-sided, where he doesn't take matters into discussion. He just acts. Though he's very long-suffering to act, there are times when God is just going to do what God is going to do. And when he calls up his saints from the earth, everybody now, especially in this 2020, everybody in the world is asking me about last times and what's going to happen, and you pre this and post that and mid this and mid that and all that. And I'm just going to tell you something, guys. You got to be ready for when God decides to act. There's a lot of things in that Bible that God has not given us definites on. Okay, he's told us about them, but there's secret things belong to God, and you don't need to spend all your time worrying about how God's going to do it. You better spend your time being ready for when God's going to do it. But anyway, it's another statement. But I got to thinking about that word. It's one of the few words that I know in the Greek. I don't know why or when. The early days of my ministry, I come upon that word caught. I was sitting there reading my Bible, and I recognized that word caught don't say called. It means that God is just going to act. The old Greek word's harpazo, and it means to seize. Literally to take by force. Okay, that's what it means. It means I'm just going to reach in there and grab it. And if I got the force to hold it, that's what I'm going to do. I learned it was funny. I said, when I started off preaching, it got me thinking about it today. In fact, I pulled them down. But my library, for those of you that don't know, I hadn't been to seminary or anything like that. And I did go to college. I went to junior college, but I took auto mechanics. But I did have one course of industrial math, okay? And they tell me it's right up there with taking trigonometry at MIT, so I'm gonna hold to it. But anyway, my library consisted of this Bible. It was a Bible I got when I was baptized, 11-year-old kid, old Schofield Bible, and this book, a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and a hard-covered Sunday school book on 1 Timothy. Now, I had an old tool shed, and I converted it into my study. And I tell people, Brother Jim makes a statement a lot, and it's a true statement. You got to be hidden before you can be shown. And that's where God hid me. God hid me in that tool shed with nothing but a Bible and a concordance. If you don't know what an exhaustive concordance is, that just means every word in the Bible is in that book. Okay, and that old King James Bible, every time a word is used, it's listed from Genesis 1:1 to the end of Revelation. I'm going to say Revelation 22:21. Y'all watch me be wrong. But I just blank on the last verse of the Bible. But anyway, I try not to edit some of that stuff out so all y'all realize that even you be a preacher sometime, forget what John 3:16 says. But anyhow, but it was there that I come across that word. And I remember looking in that old book and saying harpazo. You know, I can almost even say that with my Texas accent and my uneducated self. I tend to mispronounce some words sometimes. And so if you're a Greek scholar and I said it wrong, please don't hurt my feelings and send me the correct deal. Just let me keep going. I mean, Brother Jim used to call Nicodemus Nicodemus, so you know it'll be all right. I think Malachi Malachi forever. I thought the Jews were connected to Italy for years, but anyhow. So, but I remember seeing that word, caught up, harpazo, seized, taken by force. And I remember having the thought then, well, you know, as a true statement, sometimes God just acts, and we better be ready. I thought about our country. Our country is definitely not ready for God to act quickly, swiftly. You know, in fact, if you think about empire and you think about strength of country and countries, you know, we have to take heed lest we fall. We got to watch how all these other empires fail, cracked from within, and then some kind of little external force, and the whole world changes in a night. Babylon falling in a night. God sending the hand to right. You've been weighed and you've been found wanting, and the kingdom is going to be divided from you. And it was divided between the Medes and the Persians, if you know your history. Fell in a night. I was thinking, sitting here, you know, Napoleon and France was marching across Israel. Nothing could stop them. In one moment, a little place called Waterloo, and the history changes. In a moment, God acts, changes it. It's over. And you see that all through history. And my God, I wished our country could get us. We're gonna have a revival, or we're gonna have a revolution. God help us. I tell you, it's gonna fall. We gotta turn back to the Lord. But anyway, they ain't nobody gonna listen to Todd Peavy on that. We could for a revival, God help us. I mean, we all got to get out there and just, guys, we got to turn back to Jesus. But you know, but at the same time, a lot of times we think about verses like that in country, but you know, that's true of churches. When God decides to act, and you know, sometimes God decides to revive, and we see that revival. God help us, and so many get blessed by it. But you know, there ain't never been a revival happen in a church. There's never been a revival happen in churches that people didn't get left behind. You know, I grew up Baptist. One of the true statements, Baptist folk in general, every revival ever come along was a year late catching it. Just won't stay in control of something, I guess. When the Spirit of God moves, He moves in His own will. He moves in His own way. One thing He don't do is go to checking around for who's gonna okay it. And you can have a revival. In fact, you can, like in our church, man, everybody's looking forward to getting back, and it's looking like we're really moving towards big things. And my God, what a week we've had! I tell you what, it's almost like the Lord let the old leash out on the devil a little bit. We just been battling everything in the world around here, and it makes me excited because when I see that, I see Him trying to work against things. So, you know, it always lets me know good things are going to happen, but I wonder if they're going to happen in all our lives. When God just decides to act, you know, I don't want to be left out. And you can sure be left out, you know. You can be left out of what goes on in the country. You can be left out of what goes on, you know, in the church. You can be left out in what God's doing in the world. I mean, you sure don't want to miss the rapture. You sure don't want to miss God's call to go home. You sure, you know, you want to be with the children of light. You want to be with those that God's given righteousness to. You know, if your heart ain't right with God, get it right with God. You don't know what a day's going to bring forth. I'm going to tell you something, whether it's a rapture call, whether God calls in 10 minutes or 10,000 years, I'm going to tell you something, guys. There's going to be one day God's going to call into your life. He's not going to ask anybody about it. I've buried people from pre-born to, I guess, 105, 106, I guess the oldest one I ever buried. Maybe 107, I can't even remember. And every age in between, something sudden, man, woman, boys, girls, you name it. And you got to be ready. There may come a time when God just says, you know what, now. You ready for God just say now? Yeah, what's your delay? You know, some of y'all, you being called to ministry, you giving God excuses. What if God just says now? One thing you notice about them great saints in the Bible, not all of them, but most of them. Most of them that God greatly used were people that would agree with God quickly. Now, Moses drug around, right? But, you know, you look at Mary. God talks to Mary, hijacks her life. She says, behold, the handmaid of the Lord. How you want it? Right now. I mean, ready to go, ready to go. You think about that old parable. We get so used to this world. You think about that parable Jesus talked about, that old rich man. That old rich man whose ground fared sumptuously, though King James said. And it gave him a whole big old crop. He said, and he started talking to himself. He called himself soul. Soul, my soul is so, I'm so increased with goods. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear down my barns and I'm going to build others. And I'm going to tell you something. God don't give a rip about you having increase. God don't mind giving you increase. In fact, God gives increase a lot of times, one, so that you're took care of and so that you can take care of others. But if you watch that old boy, he never talked about giving away anything. He never talked about giving out of his abundance, And he said, I'm going to tear down my barns, and I'm going to build bigger ones, and I'm going to say to my soul, soul, take thy ease. You got stuff laid up for many, many years. And what did Jesus say? He said, you fool, but you know tonight your soul's going to be required of you. That's God just acting unilaterally. Bam, there it is. God do that. God's done that this week in the lives of this church, in people's lives. God's done that in this county. And he's going to. It's going to happen today. There's going to be things happen today outside of everybody's control. God's either just going to straight and run and allow it, or he's just going to completely instigate it. And we don't know what the wisdom of the Lord is going to lead us into. The key is to be ready. The key is to be right. Are you saved? Have you been made alive by the Spirit, as Paul says? And let me ask you this, if you have, are you walking according to the Spirit? These have been loose times. All this stuff, everybody running around and can't hardly keep up with everybody. It's all we can do to keep up with each other. Man, it can get slack. When it gets slack, I can get slack. I need a tightening up all the time. You don't ever get so big, God don't need to snatch your reins. Everybody needs a tightening up every now and then. And some of y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Tightening up reins. That's, so every now and then, no matter how good a horse he is, every now and then you got to pick them reins up and square him back up, let him know who's in charge. And maybe that's what God needs to do with all of us today. Maybe he's doing it with you. Maybe he's doing it with me. I think about that old word, or padzo. It's just God doing it, seizing it, grabbing it, catching us up. Maybe that's going to happen today. I don't know. But I tell you what, if it don't, I want to be living. I want to be living always with one eye towards that eastern sky. Always ready, always looking, always hoping. I always hope that when the Lord comes back, or if the Lord calls me in death, I hope he finds me doing something good and not something bad. Amen? Well, have a good day. Have a great weekend. Lord willing, we'll be releasing out all the weekend messages, and these will be the last ones get released like that. The rest of them going to be live here at the church. August 15th and 16th, Saturday night at 6, Sunday morning 9, Sunday morning 10:30, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, in Spanish at 6 o'clock, Brother Jim with our classic service. You got an opportunity to come next week, and you pick your favorite, or you pick however you want to do, or whatever time fits good for you. We got four different speakers just about every week, and so you ought to be able to find one that you like, or one you can tolerate anyway. Well, have a great day and a wonderful weekend. Bye, guys.